Now, this type of XSS is kind of rare and hard to find, but it may have the consequences similar to the reflected XSS. So basically, in this vulnerability, everything happens in DOM. These attacks occur when the web application uses data in the DOM with JavaScript in an unsafe way. Okay, go to Kali and log into BWAP. Now, there are different types of XSS that are present in this app, but DOM XSS does not appear here, so I don't know why. However, it's not a really big deal because we can always import our own DOM XSS example. So go ahead and download this sample page. I've coded it and integrated it to work with the BWAP security model. So you can just go ahead and import the page into the BWAP folder and then use it from there. Okay, so now I'll assume that you've already done this. So open the page, domxss.php, and the default level is low as always. But before going any further, let me explain a couple of things. So previously, we talked a little bit about DOM, right? It's like it's like the backstage. So you see the stage and the show happens out there, but everything is set and controlled from backstage. So DOM is really the backstage of browsers. All right? So now, what if you're able to find a sync and change some of the sources at backstage? What happens? Well, naturally, the show would be affected by this change, and DOM XSS works a lot like that. So in this context, a source is JavaScript property that contains data that an attacker could potentially control. So an example of a source is location.search, which reads input from the query string. And a sync is a function or DOM object that allows JavaScript code execution or the rendering of HTML. Now, an example of code execution sync is eval, and an example of an HTML sync is document.body.inner HTML. Okay, so on this page, there are several sources to play with. I'm going to continue with the first one. It provides a language selection function. So choose a language and select. The URL will change to this. Type parameter specifies the source type, and the lang parameter defines the chosen language. So view the source like we always do. And as you can see, here is JavaScript code, and it uses the data in the document.url source. So it looks for the lang parameter in the URL, then uses the decoded value of this parameter in the HTML option tag. So then this Java code is what you're going to see when you view the source. Now, there's no way to understand for me from the source because I chose Spanish, but if you do view DOM, it differs. So open the developer tool, then pick drop-down element, and look at the code in the inspector tab. It shows the latest source for the browser to display the chosen language. So we can determine the chosen language here. Now, enable Foxy Proxy and choose English, then submit. Burp gets the request, very straight and forward, and the response comes up. So let's look here. There's really no way to understand the chosen language directly, right? But the JavaScript code uses the URL source and detects the language. So now let's turn this into a mechanism that will execute scripts for us. Just add an alert code to the end of the URL, and yes, it works. So open Web Developer and pick the element. And you see here, this is our payload. Okay, so now we can use our famous payload to send this session ID. And I'm not going to close the developer tool. I'll need to open it again. And go to the Network tab, then paste the payload and hit Enter. And we can observe the cookie value is sent. So go to the Inspector tab, pick the drop-down menu, open these collapsed parts, and here is the payload that we've entered. So now open the Stealer app, refresh the page, and the first one is the session ID is coming up. So go back to Kali. Okay, so now let's look at different levels. So change it to medium. First, choose the source again. Select a language to see parameters. And I'm going to paste this simple JavaScript code and go. Okay, so it doesn't work. But remember, in this level, the script tags are not allowed. And actually, this phrase is not allowed. So we need to create another payload. Open Developer Tool, pick the element. Now, here is the option tag. Okay, so now we need to find a way to inject the JavaScript code here to execute. So we're going to create the payload step by step. First, complete the opening option tag, then close the option tag, and then close the select tag. So now we can write our payload without a script tag. So now I'm going to write this, and I'll use JavaScript in an event method. So now copy it. Now, yeah, I forgot to write something for the rest. I think you can handle that, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to paste, but I'll close the tool and paste and then go. And perfect, the page executes our payload. Now, exploitation will be up to you. Okay, so now enable Foxy Proxy and refresh the page. So this is what it looks like in Burp. And here's our payload sent to the server as well. So if there is no check at the back end, DOM XSS will arise. So forward all, and the alert appears. All right, so the last level. So first, choose the source. Select a language, see the language parameter. And now we can add here our sample JavaScript payload. Yes, alerting code. Oh, nothing happens. So remember, the code checks to see if the language parameter has one of the languages in the box. So we may have a problem, but have no fear and no worries at all, because you have also seen the solution. Do you remember? I'll take you through it. Okay, so enable Burp, paste the payload, and go. We get the request in Burp. And see, the payload is sent to the server, and this causes the error. And then forward the rest. Okay, so let me go back to a clear URL. And now I can paste the same payload here. And yeah, the way to send this payload to the server may not be obvious, but there is a way. So just put a pound symbol here, and the rest after the symbol won't be sent to the server. So let's hit Enter to see. Look at Burp. And the payload is not in the request. Forward and let it all go. And the alert message appears. And once again, I will leave the exploitation up to you.